Hey everybody, welcome to this webinar that I've made for you guys. So I would actually go and grab something for yourself to drink so you can relax and just sit and listen to this. You can also pause the video throughout as well. So this is a presentation on understanding emotional and binge eating. So my name is Bethany. I'm a certified holistic nutritional consultant, the business owner of Nutritious and Delicious. I'm a mom of two boys, and today we're going to talk about emotional and binge eating because there's a difference in here as well. So these are very common struggles a lot of people actually face, especially during times of stress. And the goal here today is to help you understand what's happening and start taking control back in your life as well. So, kind of my background and experience and why I have the skills to talk to you about this is that I've actually worked in the diet and health industry as a nurse prior to being a certified holistic nutritional consultant. And I've dealt with lots of patients who have dealt with emotional and binge eating for years. And I also see it in my work today, unfortunately, because people coming to me based on having been on lots of diets or restrictive eating or fasting, and it's kind of emotionally and mentally draining them, and they're not able to keep the weight off, unfortunately. And the diet industry really has become a revolving door for people. That's why they make a ton of money, right? So I have a lot of behind the scenes knowledge, and I know what works and what doesn't work with food and the word diet. I actually don't like the word diet because it's very a negative connotation for people. So what we're going to be discussing today is we're going to break down what is emotional eating, the difference between emotional and binge eating, because there are actually different things there, why it actually happens, and steps to regain the control for yourself. So let's kind of get into first what is emotional eating. So we need to kind of define what is emotional eating. Emotional eating is when you eat in response to your feelings rather than hunger. So it's using food or drink to soothe stress, like sadness, boredom, even in celebrating happy times as well. That's like a way of emotionally eating as well, even though it's not a negative thing. But think about like birthdays and holidays. It's kind of like you're eating based off emotion. Everyone's around you. We're all kind of encouraged to eat and drink. So there's difference between understanding emotional hunger versus physical hunger based on this. So emotional hunger hits suddenly, and then physical hunger actually builds gradually for you. Emotional hunger, we actually crave specific comfort foods in those moments. Emotional hunger often leads to mindless eating as well. So this is where you're scrolling through your phone, you're looking at a computer, you're watching TV, and you're kind of just doing this with popcorn or whatever it is, or chips that you're eating, say, for example, while physical hunger actually leads to very mindful choices. And this is where we're like planning ahead. We're like, we already know this is going to happen. So this is where we actually make sure that we have something in place instead of, because we know it's going to be set up. Some examples of emotional eating triggers. This is not limited to this list, but just some common ones that I personally see within my work is emotional eating can come from stress from work or family life, which is a common thing. Relationship issues, that's a big one for a lot of people. Feeling bored, lonely, or anxious. So think about like maybe mindless at work, you're bored, you're kind of like going through the day and the clock's ticking slowly. That's another way a lot of people are kind of like looking around, like, what do I eat? I need to go to the vending machine or I need to order something. This one's a huge one I find is it's a trauma response to self-soothe as well. So when you are triggered, a lot of people will tend to eat or drink because they don't want to feel the feelings that are coming up for trauma. And I totally understand that, but it's something that we definitely need to work through as well. And then, like I said, there's not always a negative connotation to emotional eating. It can be celebrations like birthdays, holidays. It's because the food and the drink are central to what you're doing, but you're actually not hungry. So, emotional eating versus binge eating. So, binge eating is a little bit different. Binge eating is actually characterized by eating really large quantities of food in a short period of time. Often feeling a loss of control during this eating episode, tuning out, and feeling really shameful afterwards. And then the cycle repeats itself. So, you're kind of like doing this cycle The key difference between emotional and binge eating is emotional eating can be eating small amounts, but frequently in response to the feelings momentarily. So that would be like, I don't feel good. Like we've had a fight, like in a relationship, and you go to ice cream or you have some chips and you're like, I feel better. But binge eating is more like a prolonged response where you're eating a large amount of food and you kind of zone out, and it happens quite often as well. I've noticed. Binge eating, like I said, follows feelings usually of guilt, shame, regret, and it actually triggers the negative feelings to repeat the cycle all over again. So we'll kind of explain this a little bit. So understanding the cycle of binge eating episodes. So binge eating often follows this pattern. What I see is there's a trigger. So there's emotional distress going on within yourself. The binge eating is coming in large amounts of food or drink. And then once that's happened, you've zoned out. There's guilt, there's shame. Why did I do that? And all the name calling that goes on in your head. You're beating yourself up. And then it becomes restrictive dieting, fasting, negative thoughts to kind of recontrol yourself back into like that position again of I need to sort of cut back, get back on it. It's like the Monday start kind of thing. Like it's a lot of that. It's very black and white. It's very like I can't do that again. And then the problem is it does happen again because it triggers the emotional distress again. So it actually starts to trigger again because of the guilt, the shame, the restrictiveness that's going on. So why does this actually happen? So there's a psychology behind emotional eating. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and comfort, and food activates that reward system in the brain, actually releases dopamine, and that is our feel-good hormone. So that's like when you eat something, you're like, oh, I feel really good. So it's an instant hit of dopamine. Emotional eating can be also a learned behavior from childhood. So this is like rewarding you for doing a good job. Here's a cookie, like let's go for ice cream. Not always a negative thing, but it's just that we kind of get into these established patterns that I did good today, so like I went to the gym, so therefore like I deserve that pizza. So you're kind of rewarding yourself with food or drink. The brain also associates certain things like certain foods, usually high sugar, high fat, high salt, with comfort and safety, because that's also something about like you've maybe been made as a kid. Like maybe grandma used to make you a certain kind of food, or your mom or your dad or whoever it was around you maybe made food for you. So that food was very comforting to you as well. So that also can trigger, you're looking for that comfort and that safety from those people. Maybe they're not around anymore, things like that. And you're looking for that instant gratification of that comforting, but it's in the form of food instead of somebody like hugging you and giving you that emotional support. Now, there are hormonal and nutrient connections as well. And this is where like I dive deep into this as well, especially in consultations, listening to clients, maybe what they've gone through in the past, of what they've done, like kind of logistically, what have they done blood work wise and all this kind of stuff. So cortisol is the stress hormone. It actually increases cravings for sugar and fatty foods. The pandemic was a big one for this, and I still continue to see it to this day. It's on a worldwide scale. We had a lot of stress. People were home. They felt very out of control. And this is where a lot of people started to fill up their baskets with junk food, more alcohol. There was huge amounts of alcohol that were being bought as well. And people haven't let go of those habits really. Serotonin, this is your mood regulating hormone. It's often low during stress, leading people to seek out foods with the temporary boost, like I mentioned before, with the sugars and the salts. And I do see this one typically in a heavy amount of carbohydrates because it's like a sedation feeling. So serotonin, if you're like, I really looking for that happiness, a lot of people will gravitate typically to like heavy carbs because it's like that. Once you've eaten them, it's like that sedation feeling where you feel like really comforted, but then you kind of have the bloating and everything else going on as well. Now, female and male hormones that are off balance could also trigger food cravings, and these need to be addressed to fix the problem. So I'll give you a couple of examples here. So one example is like progesterone imbalance for women, typically cravings for carbohydrates, like pasta, breads, and really salty snacks like chips for comfort and energy. If your body is lacking certain nutrients, you're also prone to craving for certain foods, which also need to be corrected. So, an example of this would be like a magnesium deficiency usually shows up with cravings for chocolate, nuts, and seeds as well. It's typically more chocolate, but as soon as we kind of correct that magnesium imbalance, you're not as likely to want to have so much chocolate all the time, because usually that's where a lot of the cravings are coming from, is we actually are imbalanced in our nutrients as well. So emotional eating as a coping mechanism, eating is easy. Like, it's everywhere. You can just call them now and, they deliver to your door, right? So it's an accessible way to actually manage uncomfortable feelings for a lot of people, because food is more abundant than ever now. And like I said, we can order it online. We can buy chips, chocolate from a grocery store, something that's convenient down the road. So food offers a temporary distraction from those emotions, but it actually doesn't solve the underlying problem, right? Like, that's why we keep doing it, because we're not actually solving what's going on. A lot of people aren't really aware. First of all, maybe they're doing it. And then the second thing is, this is why a lot of people don't get lasting results when they go on programs, because they go back to old patterns, not because they don't know how to eat healthy, but because emotionally, they go back to the same issues, basically. So we have to solve sort of those issues as well. So common triggers I typically see within my work is um, like stress from work, relationships, family, financial issues. Like, these are quite common. Like, these are high stress things. Hard emotions that come up as well. So this would be things like anger, sadness, anxiety, grief. These are huge emotions that it's really hard to deal with. And this is why I find the end of the day is typically where most people will start to emotionally eat or binge eat, because we are now alone with our thoughts, and this is where they start to creep in. And this is where most people, they're not distracted from work or kids for the day. And basically, this is where most people are winding down and then struggling with emotion. So this is typically what I see. The other one is boredom of lack of activity. Think of the pandemic, where we had little to do. We didn't know, what was what, and trying to sort of figure out, like, what do I do with myself now? Feeling a loss of control. So with people, places, and things in our life, if we feel we don't have control over those things, food and substances can also become an anchor for us too, because it's something easy, quick we can use in that moment. Another one is doesn't get talked about too often, is social pressure seems to be a trigger as well. So this can be, depends on sort of how you've grown up as well, but think about like big family dinners, maybe eating out with friends, holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Like, this is where things can come up where you feel pressured to eat. Oh, it's someone's birthday, you should be eating that slice of cake, even though you're like, I don't really want it, but sure, I'll eat it, right? Or you've gone to family members' houses for dinner and they're like, why aren't you eating my food? Like, I love you. Like, it's cultural as well. Like, food is very cultural. Like, we cook food to say we love you to other people. And if you don't eat it or accept it, it's like you're rejecting them. So there's a whole thing around that too, right? So there is 5 steps to regain this control for yourself. I'm going to go through them with you and kind of show you what you can do just kind of within this webinar here. So number 1 is mindful eating. The first thing is, a lot of people are very unaware, first of all, like what's going on for themselves. So one of the best tools for combating emotional and binge eating is actually practicing mindfulness. Like, it sounds kooky, but being aware of your actual habits, like your eating habits, like you're asking yourself, are you truly hungry? Are you eating to cope with emotion? So you're kind of like stopping yourself before you do it, because you get into such a habit, it becomes you're doing it on autopilot. So you're kind of trying to figure out, like, where in my day am I doing these things? And where in my day maybe am I restricting myself, that like I feel like I'm going to have to do this later, right? So this is where I say, like, slow down during meals. So like, take your time to savor each bite and avoid distractions, especially like TV, phones while eating, because we turn off when we're looking at these devices and we're not actually paying attention to our food. So we're not even registering. We've maybe had this amazing meal or this great snack that we've made. And how did it taste? Was it salty, sweet, sour, And all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're finished. Oh, okay. I didn't even acknowledge that I ate that, or I ate the entire bag of something. Another one is keeping a food diary. Now, I want to be careful with this one because restricting emotional eating, binge eating, all that kind of stuff, you do not want to get into a habit of weighing, measuring, like getting on the scale too often. But keeping a food diary, I'm talking more about a food diary of emotions. So this is what you're going to do, is that you're going to keep a log of when you feel like you want to eat something. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to stay accountable to it. So you're writing out basically like, how do you feel in that moment? Do you actually feel hungry? Or are you just kind of opening the cupboard because you're bored? Or have you left it too long that you're now ravenously hungry and you're kind of just searching for the quickest thing to eat? So having that understanding of like, maybe you have this often happening throughout the week, writing down the emotions and what's going on, like the activities and stuff. And then the other one that is big that I try to work with clients on, and this is kind of counterintuitive, and a lot of people come to me saying like, oh, you're going to put me on a diet and I'm going to have to eat salad and chicken and broccoli for the rest of my life in order for me to no, that's not what I'm going to do. If anything, trying to restrict food groups, it backfires on somebody that is emotionally connecting to food like that. So what I actually try and say is try not to restrict food groups in general or label foods as good or bad, because I hear that all the time. Like, what's good to eat? What's bad to eat? And there's honestly nothing. Black and white thinking actually backfires on you, because what you're doing is you're giving more control, more power over to those what you deem as bad foods or like junk food or anything like that. And then the problem is you want it more. It's a psychology thing. The more, you can't have something, you want it. Like it's just human nature, right? So what we're trying to do is actually, we're trying to sort of take that negative thinking off a pedestal. So we're not giving it so much, energy. So we're trying to say everything is available. You can have what you want within sort of the limitations, I guess, of like portion sizes. And that actually takes away the control and the need for putting this thing on a pedestal saying, oh, I can't have that. I'll never be able to have that. Only that person can eat food like that. So that's something I want you to think about. The other one is emotional awareness. So like I said, keep an emotional journal where you log what you're eating, not in the amount so much, but just kind of the food in general that you're eating, what you're feeling at that time. How hungry really are you on a scale of 1 to 10? So this is like your stomach is growling is at a 10, right? This also helps you identify the triggers and the patterns over time. And what you'll start to notice is if you keep this kind of journal log going for yourself throughout the year and you start looking at it, you'll actually start to see more awareness around like your patterns and your own behaviors. And that's the first step, is having that awareness of what is going on. Number 2 is finding healthy alternatives, because a lot of people will say to me, I love pizza, I love pasta, don't want to give up bread. Like, I love ice cream, I love chocolate. I love chocolate. I'm a sweet tooth by nature. And I don't ever want to give up those things, but I find alternatives that I like, that I can have, that I can eat, because I can't tolerate dairy. So I have to find dairy-free choices, whether it's ice cream, lattes with milk, that's, oat milk, or dairy-free chocolate. Like, I still eat all those things. So I'm not saying to never have those things again. It's that we need to find a better quality that actually has some type of nutrients in it, or make it yourself. So the finding healthy alternatives as well is a good one, is finding a go-to list of activities to do instead of eating. So this is kind of a way of distracting yourself, and it can work temporarily while we're sort of going through the emotions around food and what's connecting it. These can be things like going for a walk to find exercise to push out that anxiety and frustrations. This is where going to the gym and sort of just like going for a run or going for a walk, depending on what you like to do, go for a bike ride. calling a family or friend member that you trust. You just don't feel good in that moment, instead of eating and relying on the bag of chips or the chocolate or whatever it is like your comfort. You actually go and like make a connection with somebody else. Practice deep breathing and meditation videos online. Really good for people who are very anxious or sad, depressed, things like that. Like, it can really help bring up your energy. Doing a hobby as well that engages your hands. This is a big one for people because most people like want to have something so that when they're sitting and watching a movie, they want to eat something. So this is where like reading, drawing, sorting out clothes, like organizing, like you're actually physically doing something. So you're not sort of going to want to use your hands to eat food and stuff like that, right? So even just holding sometimes like club soda like as a drink is a different one as drinking as well. Like we have clients that do that as well. Like people that have used alcohol in the past, they use the same wine glass, but now they're kind of mixing it sort of half and half with club soda, Perrier water, things like that. And it's just the act of having it, I think, in your hand as well. It's helpful as well while you're kind of going through the emotions. So number 3 is balancing your food. So balancing meals as well is pretty adamant, I think, for people who struggle with hormonal issues. So this is where like plenty of protein, fiber, and healthy fats can keep your blood sugar stable and reduces cravings. So I typically find a lot of women are lacking protein massively in their diet, in their meal plan, and men are typically eating too much protein, unfortunately. But we kind of need to level it out a little bit and put a little bit more healthy fat and fiber in there as well. And this helps keep your blood sugar stable. This is where if you haven't eaten all day and you come home and you're like ravenously hungry, you haven't actually kept your blood sugar stable all day. So your body is crashing. And this is between 3 to 5 p.m. typically for most people. And this is where you'll literally eat like a box of crackers because you're just so hungry, or like, cereal by the family bag size or something like that. Because your body is so starved of nutrients for the day, and the blood sugars are all over the place, and they're too low. Or if you're drinking coffee and sugary substances throughout the day, maybe they're too high as well. Drinking water regularly to avoid confusing that with hunger. That's a big one. A lot of people don't actually drink enough water, and they confuse that hunger with actually they need to have more water in their meals as well, and things like that. So when they're drinking, you actually want to make sure that you have water before you maybe eat sometimes, because it might just be that. And then having a customized plan that's actually made to your needs and tastes without you fitting into a rigid one size fits all program, because that actually creates restriction and is unattainable to follow. And this is where I start working with clients on customizing things to them, not the other way around, because I've worked in that industry for so long where the plan was one made box thing. You had to fit into it, and your life, whether you have kids or you're cook, you're not the cook, or you are the cook. Everybody had to sort of fit into that one thing, and that's why it's unattainable, because it's not custom to you, also your emotions, the things that you've gone through, and the way your life is set up right now. Number 4 is managing stress. So stress management, the techniques are crucial. Try activities like yoga, journaling, engaging in regular exercise. Maybe, obviously, like I said, include a friend or family or partner in for moral support as well. So managing stress, like chronic stress on a regular basis, will also help you curb away from eating and drinking as much as it's maybe taking over right now emotionally for you. And number 5 is seeking support. It can be hard to break the cycle alone. Don't hesitate to reach out for professional help. Obviously, therapists, coaches, even someone like myself, providing support and accountability, helping you stay accountable and on track. Because one size doesn't fit all with the help out there, obviously. So how I kind of work with clients is I build custom meal plans around your schedule and your taste. So like if you like sugary versus salty preferences, we stay away from anything like restricting food groups, like I said before. And it's about baby steps with me because, like I said, it's been shown to work for your long-term success, is that we actually want to break the habits emotionally and have a healthy relationship with food and drink. So that's usually how we start as well. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to go through as well, just kind of like thoughts and everything and recapping questions. So, we've got some questions and stuff to wrap up. Emotional binge eating are, deeply connected on how we manage our stress and our emotions. And like I said, bringing awareness to these habits and practicing mindfulness and building healthier coping mechanisms, you can actually regain the control over the eating habits. So just a kind of a recap of what we talked about, is we identified like the triggers are there as well, practicing mindful eating, finding alternatives to eating as well, and balancing your foods, and managing stress. Remember the big things here. So these are the couple things that like I just want you to kind of take away from this is, remember the goal is progress, not perfection. We're not looking to be perfect and stick to something 100% out the gate, because it's not attainable, right? Changing your relationship with food and drink takes time, but small steps add up. Be kind to yourself on this journey. Like there's going to be times where you go backwards and you're like, oh, like I went and did all this, food and I ate. You know what? The quickest thing is just get back up and then we'll start again. Like you have to realize like this is life. Like you're not going to be perfect from out the gate, right? And if you're looking to be perfect, you're setting yourself up for failure. So from my experience, it's never been about the food itself, whether it's one extreme, from under eating to overeating. It's the emotions that are driving the act to eat or restrict. So kind of some final thoughts on how I work with clients and everything as well, just for you guys so you're aware. So the first step to overcoming emotional binge eating is getting personalized plan that works for you, and your unique situation. And if you're ready to take the next steps to a healthy relationship with food, this is what you want to be doing. If you have emotional or binge eating tendencies, is I'd love to personally support you on this transformation journey. So my how I work is my 1 hour consultation. It's virtual, is designed to help you understand your emotional eating habits. And we actually create a tailored plan to you for lasting change. So during the sessions together going forward, for accountability together, we'll be talking things about your emotional triggers, patterns around foods, strategies to cope with difficult emotions without having to turn to food and drink, better ways to nourish your body and your soul without having to eat, and techniques to break the cycle of restriction and binging. So whether you're struggling with frequent binge episodes, using food to cope with the stress or the anxiety or boredom, feeling out of control around certain foods. So this is the black and white thinking of like good and bad foods, shame about foods or guilt about your eating habits or your drinking habits, and yo-yo dieting. So like if you've had a history of yo-yo dieting or restricting yourself and your weight has also fluctuated massively throughout the years, I can definitely help you find the missing pieces and create a plan that's tailored to your unique journey going forward to help you with that freedom. So remember, healing your relationship with food is more about it's more than just what you eat, right? It's about understanding and addressing the underlying emotional needs that drive these behaviors. So by working together, we can help you finally get off this diet merry-go-round or this restriction merry-go-round or this like, let's try the new fad like merry-go-round, and establish more of like a peaceful, nourishing relationship with food and your body as well, because this is a big thing that it can really take over your life, if you let it. So what I'll do is I'll actually leave the booking link for you here in the show notes here for yourself. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions or another video you'd like me to do. And I'm more than happy of answering your questions. And thank you so much for showing up today, and in good health, everybody. Bye for now.